While most people are convinced Bitcoin just entered a bear market, Wall Street has been saying something completely different this week. Bernstein, an $829 billion firm, just declared the end of the Bitcoin four-year cycle, and they even made a huge 2026, 2027, and beyond price prediction that kind of surprised me. I'm not going to lie. So what does Wall Street know? Can we even trust their predictions at this point? Do we even want to listen to their predictions is probably the better question, but what do they know? What do they see on the horizon that is fundamentally shifting the Bitcoin market, the Bitcoin price structure? Well, we got some news for you guys. And of course, I'm not alone. I do have Chris Alamo with me today.
What's up,
our friendly neighborhood Bitcoiner. And let's just dive straight into it. So here is the headline from Bitcoin Magazine. And it goes, Bitcoin price briefly surges past 92K as, quote, Bitcoin breaks the four-year cycle. The Bitcoin price jumped past 92,000 over the weekend as Bernstein and JP Morgan signal a longer-term bullish outlook. So, again, last week, as I was telling you guys, JP Morgan was saying, hey, we're going to 170K in 2026. Now we have Bernstein, another bank, another Wall Street hedge fund-esque kind of company saying something very similar, 150K. But let's look into what their reasons are. And I'm actually going to post over to the actual source material here, which is from Matthew Siegel, who is over at VanEck. And I guess this was a client note. I tried to find the official source of this, but it might have just been if you are a client of Bernstein, then they give you, the private note here. But here is kind of the TLDR, the short of it. Bernstein, quote, in view of recent market correction, we believe the Bitcoin cycle has broken the four-year pattern, the cycle peaking every 4 years, and is now in an elongated bull cycle with more sticky institutional buying offsetting any retail panic selling. Despite a roughly 30% Bitcoin correction, we have seen less than 5% outflows via ETFs. That's right. Even though we make fun of the boomers all the time, the boomers buying the ETFs aren't panicking. In reality, the panic is coming from retail. All the Bitcoiners freaking out about a four-year cycle, all the Bitcoiners kind of being very mad about not seeing 2025 gains. I think that's where most of the panic is coming from, which is very interesting that the real true blue diehard Bitcoin believers are the ones that are now being bearish. And I've been having this conversation on the show with you guys for the last couple of weeks. Even Nico and I are arguing about it. Even Luke was getting a little bearish. Now, as of this morning, I can update you guys. He is starting to feel a little more bullish. Well, guess what, guys? I've stayed stupidly bullish throughout this whole thing, and you guys have been trolling me about it. But hey, one of us will be right here, and I'm going to lean towards me. I confirm my own bias. I think I am right here. Anyways, we are moving our 2026 E. I don't know what the E is. Maybe that's end of year Bitcoin price target to 150K.
End of year.
Yeah, okay. So they're moving their end of year 2026 Bitcoin price target to 150K, with the cycle potentially peaking in 2027 end of year at 200K, and our long-term 2033 end of year Bitcoin price target remains roughly $1 million. Now, obviously 150K by next year doesn't really make me get all kind of like hyped up about it, because I was expecting that this year. I'm still holding out for a Santa rally. I still got 3 weeks to be right on a Santa rally. We are starting to see the price kind of pick up. I think we might be kind of oscillating on this new trend line that we hit around 80K. It's starting to kind of set up this lower highs. And it seems to be following that. Now, we are kind of oscillating around there, and I think a kind of number that we'll be watching in the short term is if we can break above like 93K, then it seems like we're kind of back. If we break above 108, I think it's completely back. All bets are off the table. But again, 150K 2026, 200K 2027. So, 50K a year doesn't sound that good considering what we've all loved about Bitcoin, just the crazy price movements. But what is different now is it does seem to be breaking away from this 4-year cycle. I know as of now, the 4-year cycle is completely intact. You know, October 2025, 126K top, it dumped, but I'm not seeing, you know, 50, 80% corrections on the table. To me, that just doesn't make sense when you see what is going on behind the scenes. And it's exactly what Bearstein said. There's an unlimited institutional buy right now, guys. And I don't know if you guys saw, but Bitcoin Mina is happening right now. It's maybe Chris remembers what Mina is. Bitcoin Middle East.
Mina is, oh yeah, I forget.
It's Middle East, and I forget what A is. Maybe it's like North Asia. I forget. Anyways, there was an interesting clip going around of Saylor essentially saying, "Hey, I've talked to basically every sovereign wealth fund since I've been out here, hundreds of hedge managers, and they're all positioning themselves to get into Bitcoin." And I think, Middle East and North Africa. There we go. And I think that is sort of the signal here that the conversation has fundamentally shifted around Bitcoin. It's no longer just a speculative asset. It's no longer just this thing that you want to ignore. It has become, I don't want to say structurally important, but it has become a macro asset. Again, I've been saying this for the last couple of weeks, and the more data that comes out, the more it seems to be proving that exact fact, that Bitcoin is in the big leagues now, which does mean that Bitcoin will move with macro movements, not necessarily just a 4-year cycle. It's definitely not being run by retail anymore. The institutions are wholly in control. And Saylor's on stage at Bitcoin Mina right now, essentially saying that exact same thing. He's like, the institutions are totally in control right now. And I know a lot of people, when they hear that, they're like, oh, Bitcoin's been co-opted. I don't think that's the case. I think they're able to kind of move the price right now. And if you guys watch what's happening on the Bitcoin price over the weekend, the leverage is getting whipsawed right now. There was I think it was around $100 million of shorts over the weekend, $100 million of shorts and longs liquidated over the weekend. So it really is playing out into this idea that all the leverage is getting taken out of the system right now. All the leverage traders are getting wrecked. And then we have the JP Morgan stuff. That's a new wrinkle. They're coming into the space. They're launching products. It really makes you think that the Wall Street games are being played right now on Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the battlefield. And I wouldn't want to be trading right now. I wouldn't be sitting here, selling out so that I can buy lower. To me, that's probably the riskiest thing you can be doing right now. Again, the tried and true, you just keep stacking, storing your Bitcoin in cold storage. This is how you win currently, because we are in uncharted territory. We are in unknowns right now. No one knows what's going to happen, but it does seem to look like Bitcoin is not necessarily playing out exactly in the past. And since 2024, we've seen a lot of kind of, all of our models being broken. Again, I've been laying them out recently. All-time high before the halving. 2025 wasn't parabolic. As of now, if things stay the same, it's going to be a negative year. It's going to be a red year. No longer 3 green, 1 red. It's 2 green, 1 red, and who knows what's happening the year after. So it does seem like as the institutions finally get into Bitcoin, they're fundamentally shifting the market in Bitcoin, obviously being led by the ETFs, also being led by nation states, and of course the new wrinkle, which is sovereign wealth funds acquiring Bitcoin. And they're going super hard. They're super bullish on Bitcoin from the sovereign wealth fund angle, and they're all saying the same exact thing. We are holding this thing long term. This is becoming a fundamental asset or money that you want to be holding. So I always argue, and I've been arguing, it does seem like the game has fundamentally changed right now. And I'm totally here for it. I know a lot of people are like, oh, Wall Street's co-opting Bitcoin. They've taken over Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not what I thought it was. Separation of money and state. Now that all the banks are getting into Bitcoin. And I just keep kind of going with like the classic Hal Finney view. It's like everyone kind of knew that this was going to happen this way. I mean, the classic quote of Bitcoin will be used today or in the future as it is today. Very rarely from individual to individual. It's going to be from institution to institution. The base layer is starting to build out to be kind of this international settlement layer. And if you are stacking Bitcoin right now, that does kind of position you as being, you know, one of these high net worth individuals in 20, 30, 40 years, high powered, understanding what's going on in the economic base layer. So it is very interesting time right now. Now, I know the news, you know, there's a lot of good news, but the price hasn't really been moving. So everyone's just really like, what is going on? Can we even trust these Wall Street banks and hedge funds coming into Bitcoin? Can we trust their price predictions? What do they know that we don't? Part of me is really on the side that I think there's a lot of conversations behind the scenes that are really kind of building these Bitcoin price predictions. I think they're seeing things to kind of make them believe that 2026 isn't going to be a down year. I'm sure there'll be some volatility, but I'm starting to think, hey, up and to the right, slow grind. It's going to kind of bore us to death. It's already been boring us to death this year. And I do have a good Joe Colasari tweet about the 4-year cycle that I do want to talk about, because I think it fits perfectly into this, just kind of reframing our mental models about what's going on. But before I do that, Chris, what's your thoughts on this? I know you haven't been on the show in a couple of weeks, so maybe you want to rehash the JP Morgan stuff, what we're seeing from Bernstein. Do you think this kind of perspective that the institutions are now kind of really the ones controlling the Bitcoin price, and I don't mean necessarily controlling it, you know, suppressing it, all that stuff, they're just, I think, really looking for a good position to get into Bitcoin. So that's kind of where my head's at right now. But anyways, Chris, thanks for coming on. What's your thoughts on all this?
I think a fool and his Bitcoin are parted when he uses leverage. So it's very interesting whenever we see the 100K or the 100 million of longs and shorts wrecked. I know it always, like, Opti, it's like clockwork. You can set your watch to this. It's like, oh, wow, a bunch of longs are building up. All of a sudden, you know, it drops. The shorts are very happy. And then all of a sudden the shorts get blown out by, like, you know, rebounding up. And it's always funny too, when like it drops and then the guys re-put on positions of longs and then it drops again. And then they put on positions of longs and it drops again. And the inverse is done with the shorts. What is it? Gareth Solomon or whatever his name is, Gareth, whatever. He just kept like shorting Bitcoin and just kept ticking higher and higher and higher. So I think a fool in leverage is not a good thing in Bitcoin, not financial advice, but I think that the advice of staying humble and stacking sats makes the most sense. Opti, it seems to be like there's warring factions, and we've been talking about this for weeks. We've been talking about this basically since the ETFs launched, that like, institutions are here. And like, you know, is it Bitcoin going to fail or fall captive to institutions, to governments, to banks, or is it going to remain the decentralized cypherpunk libertarian ethos? And I think both things can be true. I know Matt Odell, a good buddy of mine, has been talking about this for years. There's like the Lightning Network that's like you can zap payments, you can open up Lightning channels with your friends and peers. And then there's like the corporate Lightning Network where it's only like the big companies like, you know, I won't disparage any of them, but you know, the big names of these companies that basically they'll only connect with liquidity of companies that are like verified or have large enough liquidity networks. So there might be a network of, you know, hey, the large corporate Lightning Network versus the pleb retail-oriented Lightning Network. And what I'm trying to get to is basically the biggest portion of Bitcoin, or the thing that makes the most sense in Bitcoin, is ownership. And what do we mean by that? When you buy Bitcoin and you're leaving it on the exchange, who technically owns it? Yes, you have the claim to it, but the exchange themselves technically owns it. When you buy Bitcoin and you take it in self-custody, you know, as we recommend with Bitcoin Well, and, you know, put it on a BitKey and stuff like that. When you have the Bitcoin and you don't take self-custody of it, you are forfeiting that ownership to the bank. It is exactly the same thing in the fiat economy. So if you get a paycheck from a fiat job and you leave your cash or your, you know, whatever it is, let's say you have $1,000 in the bank as an example, you are technically have claim to that $1,000, but the bank owns it. Meaning that we see all the time. We see it in Lebanon. We see it in Sri Lanka. We saw it in Ukraine. We've seen it at endless Argentina, Brazil, you name it. Countless countries, when it is your money and then they basically, the bank closes and has a banking holiday, and then they devalue 10 to 1 and the bank keeps the notes and they give you either the new printed currency or whatever. Or, you know, we've seen rappers in 2021 and 2022 being like, yo, I'm trying to shoot a music video. I want to take out 100 G's. And the bank's like, yeah, we don't have that money to give you and you have to request it for us. Why are you taking out this money? What do you want to do with this money? And they can approve or deny you. It's because they have ownership of your money. You have claim on it, but you don't have ownership of it. And that's what makes Bitcoin such a great asset. You don't want to forfeit your ownership. You don't want to buy an ETF. You don't want to buy these Bitcoin treasury companies. You don't want to buy Bitcoin and leave it at an institution. In the best case scenario, you're buying Bitcoin peer-to-peer with non-KYC sats. You're taking it self-custody, and this is something that will grow and appreciate over time. And I know, a lot of the talking heads are like, oh, well, there's dirty Bitcoin, there's clean Bitcoin, there's green Bitcoin, there's normal Bitcoin, there's criminal Bitcoin, there's non-criminal Bitcoin. And that's always like fighting for control of the narrative. And obviously on this show, we are trying to opt for the plebs. We're trying to opt for retail. We're trying to advocate for you. Yes, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with this. Yes, it is more difficult. But, as my buddy Matt O'Delly says, if you could drive a car, if you can raise a kid, if you could, get up in the morning, make sure that you're on work on time, like these are things that take responsibility. And yes, they're more difficult than alternatives. But at the end of the day, like take responsibility for your money, take responsibility for your family, take responsibility for your legacy, buy Bitcoin and take it in self-custody. I'm sorry, sound like a broken record. Sorry for the long rant there, Opti, but I'm just trying to outlay the point of Bitcoin and what makes it so important. And don't forfeit custody to these big institutions. That's how Bitcoin remains decentralized, remains in retail hands. That's how you retain the power, by running a node, self-custodying Bitcoin. I kept repeating myself in different ways, but I hope that was a good rant there.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think at times, I see people in the chat constantly, well, not constantly anymore, but people will say in the show, it's like, hey, you guys should kind of rehash some of the Bitcoin stuff, like the 101 stuff on this show. And, as much as I'm always telling them, I'm like, look, this is a news show, so we got to kind of keep you updated on what's going on recently. I think it is always important to kind of go back to the basics, why we do what we do. Why this is important, because there are new people that come on the show, or rather come in the chat and see what this is about. Maybe the title kind of got them interested, and they really don't understand what the basics are, what we're trying to do, what the point of this movement is, until you kind of go back to the basics and you kind of rehash the memes over and over and over again so that it really sinks in. But I do want to hit on what you said, because I have been kind of thinking recently, and I've been saying it on the show, there's been a lot of, I would argue, distractions this year on like where the attacks are coming at Bitcoin, whether this is an attack or this is an attack. And I think you laid it out the best. So like, this is what my kind of view has been the last couple of weeks. It's like the real attack is coming from Wall Street. And it's not necessarily this frontal attack. It's not like we hate you anymore. It's really more of like trying to incentivize you to give up your keys to Bitcoin with these shiny Wall Street products, Wall Street Bitcoin products. And it's like, hey, look, I see what you're saying, man. I really like what you're doing with this Bitcoin thing. So here, take this product from me. It'll make your life that much more easy, and you get all of the benefits, when in reality, you're giving up the biggest benefit, which is your keys and your actual, control of this Bitcoin thing. And I think this is where we're starting to see this divide right now. A lot of our friends on Twitter were very big on Bitcoin treasury companies. I think we might have seen the ICO boom kind of go through the Bitcoin treasury route, because we didn't really see much in the Bitcoin space, but we did see a lot of Bitcoin treasury companies go up astronomical. I know I was trolling all year. It's like, man, I should have just got all in on MicroStrategy. And at this point, I'm like, maybe it was a smart move not to do that. But I really like the framing that a lot of people have been saying. It's captured Bitcoin and then Bitcoin in self-custody. Like, I think that's really the fight going on right now, and it's going to be going on for a lot longer than we probably want to admit. But anyways, let's pull up this thread here from Joe Carlasari. And I know Joe is Chris's friend. He hasn't been completely right all year to what the Bitcoin price is doing, but I think this is kind of a really good framework, as we obviously are coming towards the end of the year. Everyone's trying to understand what's going on next year, because let's be completely honest here. I know sometimes you guys in the chat are always saying like, man, can we not talk about the Bitcoin price? There's other things going on. Well, Bitcoin is an economic asset. Like, this is economics, point blank. And you need to have at least a roadmap of where things are going so that you can plan correctly in economic terms. And so this is why I think we've been going through this idea right now, is like, are we still in a 4-year cycle? Did the 4-year cycle break? Are we in completely uncharted waters? So you kind of can, at the very least, have two different plans, maybe one that plays out and one that doesn't, but at least you are prepared for what's coming. So I really enjoyed this thread here from Joe, and he goes, the cycle bros will argue Bitcoin is just another 4-year cycle because it suffered a pullback, and their candlestick astrology tells them a negative 50% decline is imminent. The problem is that, one, a sample size of 3 prior cycles is statistically insignificant and not useful in forecasting, and 2, the current price action is comparable with any prior cycle. I totally agree with this right here. Like, you know, I know Joe Colasari sometimes is I don't know, for lack of better terms, a little hyperbolic and kind of a dick on Twitter. Like, I'm not going to lie, but I think he's got a point here. Anyways, he goes, the same cycle bros who said Bitcoin would explode this year, just like prior cycles, have been dead wrong. I've had the target yearly high of 130K since January of 2025 because this data is everywhere for those willing to look. Mature assets perform differently from immature ones. The availability of hedging vehicles, derivatives completely changes market structure. They reduce volatility and create a grinding price structure, not explosive parabolic moves. This is precisely what we've seen since nearly early 2024. This is what I've been kind of saying as the year progressed. Yes, I was completely wrong in the beginning of the year. Now, as kind of I got more data, I'm like, this is what makes the most sense to me is this last tweet. Going further, he goes, of course, we didn't get identical cycles when the asset market has grown 150x plus. Simply, Bitcoin today is incompatible with the market structure of 2013 or 2017. The 2013 peak was $1,172 with a $12 billion market cap. Does not compare to the 2017 peak of 19.6K with a $320 billion market cap as Bitcoin entered the mainstream public consciousness. The 2021 peak of 69K and 1.1 trillion market cap was a stimmy check driven bubble that was ended by the Fed jacking up interest rates and a crypto contagion caused by FTX, GBTC, Alameda, Three Arrows, et cetera, et cetera. In other words, the broader macro environment, not the mythical cycle, drove this decline. Now, I know that's kind of a hard pill to swallow, but I think I kind of agree with this, that when Bitcoin kind of hit that 70K, it did kind of enter mainstream consciousness. I know it didn't really feel like it, but it is starting to kind of move in a broader macro movement right now, which is why you see all of the macro moves, the tariffs and all this stuff really affect Bitcoin, is because it is part of someone's bigger macro portfolio. It's no longer just retail driven. Anyways, at prior cycle peaks, 57%, 80%, and 90% of the 21 million Bitcoin supply had been mined. Now we're past 19 million coins, or over 95% of all Bitcoin that will ever exist, owned and in the market. Annual new supply after the 2024 halving is roughly 164,000 Bitcoin, or roughly a 0.8% inflation. Earlier halvings chopped inflation from high single digits to mid single digits. Now they shave off basis points from a nearly fixed float. Whatever that is, it's not the same, quote, 4-year pump mechanism. Again, I think this is totally true. Structures of the market is unrecognizable versus old cycles. 2013 and 2017, 0 U.S. spot Bitcoin ETFs. 2025, of course, U.S. spot ETFs hold more than 1.4 million Bitcoin, or roughly 6% of the supply. That's 8 times annual post-halving issuance sitting in regulated vehicles that didn't exist in prior cycles. CME crypto futures and options hit record notional open interest of $39 billion in 2025. For comparison, in 2020, the high was around $1.47 billion in open interest. This completely changes the market structure and how the asset will perform. We've gone from almost no derivatives plus no ETFs to a market where ETF and future flows dwarf miner supply. Why would the market continue to perform in the mythical 4-year cycle given this material change in the market? And of course, you know, Bitcoin now trades like a macro asset, not a halving horoscope. I love the trolling in it. It's great. Since 2020, Bitcoin's relationship with equity slipped positive and has stayed that way. 30-day correlation with the S&P 500 now frequently runs roughly 0.5 to 0.7 plus. Studies since the 2020 flu flu crisis shows S&P returns significantly affecting Bitcoin during high volume periods. All that makes sense. It's a widely held derivatives heavy asset, increasingly priced off liquidity, rates, and risk sentiment. And here's the last one. But Joe, it sold off in October, just like the Reddit post said it would at the end of the cycle. The fact that Bitcoin sold off in October alongside a broader decline in risk assets tells you nothing about a magical 4-year cycle. It simply suggests that Bitcoin's correlation with equities, which also sold off, remains intact. Nothing in this thread claims Bitcoin can't sell off or that it can't drop further from here. Hold on. Geez. The point is that it's intellectually lazy to argue it's selling off because of a date on the calendar. And he just goes on. But essentially, look, I don't mean to read on you guys that much this early on the show, but I think there was a lot of sauce in this of kind of reframing where we are. Obviously, 2025 is like Bitcoin's last year. No one knew what was going on. We all thought we did. We all basically got it completely wrong. And so if we're still working off old paradigms, I think it kind of behooves us. I said it behooves us to update our mental models of where we're going, what is actually affecting the markets, who's actually in the market. And the closer we get to the end of the year, the more it becomes obvious to anyone that really pays attention to the news is the institutions are trying to come in full force. And it really is a be careful what you wish for moment, because we always thought this was going to happen. But I think we didn't believe that they would change the Bitcoin 4-year cycle. But again, it's kind of like laws of big number. You forget how little capital we all actually had in Bitcoin until these institutions come in and buy billions of dollars, in single chunks, hundreds of millions of dollars at a time. We're just sitting here enjoying the ride at this point. I know the ride hasn't been that fun this year, but we're no longer in control. I think this is where a lot of the kind of anger is coming from on Bitcoin Twitter is a lot of people that have been in Bitcoin are probably sad that the institutions came in, dwarfed all of our buys, and now we're just kind of sitting back and just being like, well, what do we do now? There used to be some stuff to argue about. There used to be things to do, and now we're just kind of waiting for people to scoop up a lot of coin. There's been no retail in Bitcoin. It seems like Main Street doesn't care about Bitcoin. Everyone's broke right now. There's no money to get in. The only people with money are the institutions, and I think they're playing some games so that they can stack their bags, and then soon enough they'll probably start ripping it. Anyway, Opti, we need 1 minute charge. Lol. No, not today. Damn, Joe, TLDR. Anyways, Chris, maybe Chris can do a short of that. Do you think Joe's right? Have you had any conversations with Joe off air? Because I know you guys are partnered in doing some stuff behind the scenes.
I haven't talked to Joe in a minute. We've kind of just been busy doing a bunch of stuff. I know he just had another kid as well, so he's been busy with that. But no, I mean, I definitely kind of love Joe. He's always contrarian, loves to fight facts. I know he's not right 100% of the time, but he is generally, the sentiment is pretty good there. I will say, I still think we've been on a generational run since 2009. I do think we're definitely going to see a difference in cycles because, as the asset grows in value, I think it's harder to move a $2 trillion asset versus a $20 billion asset versus a $300 billion asset. So it definitely changes. I guess the one thing I will caveat is that, yes, institutions are coming in with large swaths of money. I mean, they have over $1 million in coins. I know some of that is, like we said, we were talking about the ownership before. That's really, they're owning it on behalf of clients in 401ks and IRAs for the ETFs and such. Obviously, as same thing with basically the Bitcoin treasury companies, they're buying Bitcoin, you're owning the stock or the bonds on those companies. And they either, they kind of owe you the title of those. But I guess the one thing I will caveat is these are the same people that caused the 2000 financial crisis, the 2008 financial crisis, that benefited from the 2020 financial crisis. So there's a great quote by Warren Buffett. I know, generational hater of Bitcoin, but there's a lot of wisdom in that guy from him and Charlie Munger. So one thing that they always said, or one thing that Warren Buffett said was, derivatives are financial weapons of mass destruction. Yeah. What he means by that is, so obviously Joe was doing the comparison, I think in 2020, there was only about $1.7 billion in basically derivatives or hedging or things like that, or longs, shorts, anything. Now it's like up to 40 billion. So still 40 billion on a $1.8 trillion asset class is only about 2% of the market. But you could see like, hey, 5% or 10% or whatever it may be. The thing with the stock market and the bond market, obviously, if it starts slipping more than 5% in a day, the stock market shuts down for 15 minutes to cool off. The circuit breakers they always talk about. I'm just imagining this panel in the New York Stock Exchange, like sparks flying out of it as like the circuit breakers are flipping like a real electrical box. That's obviously not the case, but they're obviously stopping and influencing the market. It's not a free and open market. Where in Bitcoin, it is one of the true and only free and open market. So, we've seen Bitcoin drop thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars over the course of a day or a couple days, or we've seen Bitcoin spike up, obviously. So I will say with all these derivatives, there is no like backstop. There is no Fed, maybe at the end of the day that always people have pontificated that maybe the Federal Reserve, if Bitcoin becomes so integrated in the economy, that there will be, buying Bitcoin or basically turning on QE to back up these Bitcoin treasury companies. I don't think we are there yet. I still think we're a nascent niche industry, but obviously if the trend continues, we will grow to be a large portion of the industry. And ultimately, in hyper Bitcoinization, Bitcoin becomes the global reserve currency, of hopefully the world or of many different nations kind of want to settle in Bitcoin terms. They don't want to settle in fiat, and gold is too slow. We know the restrictions of that. So I will say, like, yes, I do think the 4-year cycles are elongated. It's harder to move a bigger and bigger ship or turn the ship around. But at the same time, like, the point is proven kind of in Joe's tweet that he said right now it's 164,000 Bitcoin are coming onto the market every year with obviously the current issuance of Bitcoin. And obviously we've seen record growth from not just MicroStrategy, but from the ETFs and all these different things that at the end of the day, once that cycle gets cut in half at around 2028, again, oh, okay, we went from 164,000 Bitcoin coming on the market to 82,000 Bitcoin coming on the market. And that's only to cut in half again and again and again. And as long as the demand stays there or stays the same and the supply is getting cut in half, price is the thing that has to move. Obviously, there will be OGs that are cashing out, upgrading their lifestyles, whatever it may be. Institutions may be hedging or, reducing their size. Hey, we're at 5% Bitcoin allocation. Our allocation grew to 10% because of price appreciation. So we want to sell some of our Bitcoin to, they always say like de-risk or, sell the winners to buy more losers. But at the end of the day, like this market is growing. Yes, things are not going as fast, I guess, a lot of us would like. But at the end of the day, I do think, you have a fixed supply. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. And if that demand remains the same or only goes up, price is going to have to move in the medium to long term. And so we're basically going up to the right in the long term. But yeah, maybe the 4-year cycles are dead. Maybe they're reduced. Maybe they're slowed down. But I still think we're going up to the right in the long term. It's going up forever, Laura.
Yeah. Someone says we're all just degens. That's literally what's going on. We didn't realize we were degens until we didn't get our price pumps. And then we realized like, okay, we're all just
until we didn't get our dopamine hits
we're all
of price pumps and dumps.
We're all just degens, man. It's crazy. All right, guys. Let's keep it moving. Of course, before I move on, I do want to remind you guys to smash the like button, subscribe to the show, and of course, comment. Let us know what you think about the show. And let's talk about Bitcoin well. Best place to buy your Bitcoin, because when your dollars go through or your Canadian moose shekels go through, the Bitcoin gets sent directly to your cold storage. There is no possibility of them losing your Bitcoin. They have never lost Bitcoin because they never hold Bitcoin. Again, you literally need to have a Bitcoin wallet to buy from them. Yes, it's one extra hurdle, but in the long history of Bitcoin, it's the best hurdle to get over because you do not want to leave your Bitcoin on the exchanges. So scan the QR code. Scan the QR code. And of course, when you sign up, you will get 3 chances to win 1 million sats. I repeat, 1 million sats on the Bitcoin wishing well. And of course, if you're sitting on the sidelines and you have a shit ton of cash, aka $50,000 or more, make sure you get in touch with the Bitcoin Well Infinite team, and they will give you a white glove service so that you do not wreck yourself and you actually take your Bitcoin into custody. This is the best way to do it. All right, guys, we'll be right back after this quick commercial break.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, StampSeed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed phrases really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need for you to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates. Instead of just writing them down on paper, paper is fragile. Titanium plates are strong. Your words are actually stamped into the titanium plate with this hammer and these letter stamping tools. Once the words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. And now you can customize your titanium seed plates. You can upload your design or logo and they will laser engrave it on the back of your seed plate, the opposite side of where the words are. Stamp your seed on Stamp Seed and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the stampseed.com store.
Alrighty then. So the current Bitcoin price is $90,000. Wait, $90,360, which is a 28.4% discount. The market cap is still, we can't get over 2 trillion at $1.8 trillion. And the current block height is 927,019. I repeat, 927,019. Okay, guys. I am gonna kind of play a throwback here because I did totally miss this. But when Jack Mallers was at Bitcoin Amsterdam, he kind of did an epic rip. And I finally saw it on Twitter over the weekend. And I'm like, yo, we got to play it. Like, we need a little more of this energy, not only on Simply Bitcoin, but in Bitcoin in particular. So I'm going to play it. It is a little long, but it's kind of a banger. So I'm going to play it, and then we'll come back and, vibe out a little bit.
People have convoluted the concept of money to benefit them. It's like, oh, no, Bitcoin's not money. You're talking about an asset. The dollar's money. No, how about fuck you? First of all, don't tell me what to think or how to say what I want to say. Money is what I want to save, then I later exchange for the things I want in my life. Now, if I walk into the pizza parlor and they say, well, we technically only accept dollars at that moment, then I just convert my Bitcoin to dollars and I hand to get the pizza. But what I used as money was Bitcoin, because I exchanged the work I'm doing for those around me for Bitcoin and then later exchange it for the things I want. So this convoluted concept that there's like all these different forms of like, fuck you. I just don't buy it. And sorry, like, cause it really does bother me of like, there are powerful people in this industry that you guys all probably follow online and I'm not saying they're bad people, but they've tapped me on the shoulder and say, hey, don't say that on CNBC, or I don't like the way you talk about the dollar. Sorry, good thing I'm me and you're you, and you say whatever you want. And then in regards to the Treasury.
That's right, yeah, it's important. And that's this particular, so can I add a little context there if you don't mind? This particular port is really important. For the last, I've been the White House correspondent for Bitcoin Magazine. There are certain pressures that get put on people when they're in certain roles. So for the sake, I think it really deserves a round of applause you just gave him, because that tap on the shoulder does happen to people, and they get told to think about things a certain way and message a certain way, and his messaging has remained consistent throughout. And this is really important. It's why you're up here, because I think what you do with that messaging is you speak to the hearts of everybody in this room who's taken the time, who's used their money to come here, spend time at a Bitcoin conference, to be around other like-minded people who see Bitcoin as money. So I think this point is really, really important. The amount of pressure, it really can't be underestimated by people who might not be in these environments. But I'm curious, is it just your sense of integrity? It has to be hard at points. I have to imagine there are points where the pressure kind of feels like so much like, maybe it would be easier to just toe this line that people want me to toe.
Again, it's like I just am very passionate and feel very strongly about being real. Like, as a human being, I was born to love others, to contribute to something bigger than myself. Like, this is bigger than me. And it's bigger than anyone else's self-interest as well. And so, I don't think any of us were born inherently bad or wrong. So why I wouldn't want to stand for the truth and be honest. So, what's my preference? To be honest, stand for what I believe in. And by the way, not in an arrogant fashion. I'll be the first to raise my hand, which I've done throughout my career all the time, when I'm wrong. I I've said, I got to squeeze this in here just for this. My team's going to kill me. But I've said, hey, it seems like Jamie Dimon banked Jeffrey Epstein.
Big words, big words.
No, listen, I've said that pretty publicly because it seems like it's true. And JP Morgan threw me out of the bank, hilariously. And if he ever called me up and said, listen, man, you can't say stuff like that because here's the evidence that I didn't, he's never done that. He's never once provided. So I'm happy to raise my hand, the point is, and say, I was wrong. The dollar's money. Bitcoin's an asset. But it's not for those reasons that people tap me on the shoulder. They tap me on the shoulders like, well, you're saying things that, would make other people upset. If the truth makes you upset, that says a lot about you, not me.
Appreciate that.
All right, banger clip. I think I can only really get away with the full clip because Nico's not here today. So let's hope the show survives after that one. But that's a banger, man. I think I do that on the show constantly. You guys see me do this where Nico gets a little scared about the things I say, and I'm like, look, I mean, that's how I feel. Sorry, this is what I'm seeing. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but I'm with him. And actually, probably the bigger, kind of more interesting take on this is what Frank Corba and Jack were both saying. It's like there are people out there that are Bitcoiners, and like we're not here to kind of shit talk other Bitcoiners, but there is kind of, when you go into the mainstream public consciousness, there is kind of this pushback to maybe taper off the more radical notions in Bitcoin. And I think what I try to do here is I definitely try to say things so they don't scare people away. But you guys know me, I'm probably one of the more crazier Bitcoiners out there. And I mean, I'm totally with them. And you have to be kind of naive to think that there isn't a lot of pushback coming right now amongst Bitcoin narratives. And it really makes you kind of be a little more critical about the stuff that you do here. And I've been finding myself doing this because I've been seeing it happen on the opposite side. You see what the mainstream media says about Bitcoin, about anyone embracing Bitcoin. And so with that does come, we should be doing this to even us on the show, even, your favorite Bitcoiners, because there is this very real threat of like groupthink happening with Bitcoin and everyone getting very lazy. And we're just talking about the memes. And I think this is what a lot of the battles have been this year, is a lot of Bitcoiners, like, we're just kind of getting lazy and rehashing memes and haven't really updated our perspectives. And we haven't really changed what we say and what we believe in. And so I don't know if you guys have noticed, but all year I've been constantly trying to update what I'm saying, update my mental frameworks, but it's all still based on the idea that I think Bitcoin is money and no one can really tell me otherwise. I'm like, it's the best money in the world. I think, why would you want to use anything else? Digital world, we need a digital money. And of course, not just any digital money. Before I hear, our boy Jimmy on Rumble being like, Opti just called for a CBDC. Dude, we're in a digital world. It's either CBDC or it's Bitcoin. And I choose Bitcoin. And I think we're going to win. Anyways, I rambled. Opti Unleash. No, not even. Thank you guys. Thank you. This wasn't about talking about me, okay? But I appreciate it, SF. Thank you so much, Chris. Anyways, what's your thoughts hearing this clip? Because I don't know, I saw it over the weekend. And I'm like, that's a banger. We got to play it today. And then I realized Nico wasn't on the show this morning, and I'm like, perfect. We're gonna put some sauce on today. So, Chris, yeah, thoughts. You're muted, bro. Hold on.
Yep, that's on me.
There you go.
Jack Mallers is a great speaker, obviously, very articulate. It is very interesting that he was calling him out, and then a few weeks later, he gets his JP Morgan Chase account shut down. So it's very interesting. I think this kind of goes for a lot of the Bitcoiners and the, kind of the overlap of the freedom maximalists or the free speech absolutists. He's like, if the truths that I say offend you, that's more of a sentiment on you than it is on me. Maybe I butchered the way it was said, but basically saying like, if I'm telling you truths and you're getting upset by it, that's your problem, not my problem. And I think that's a great point. I think a lot of times people like to sugarcoat things. And I definitely agree, like Frank and Jack said in not so many words, that basically in Wall Street, in, DC, in these power centers of the world, they're like, hey, dude, you may want to walk back what you're saying. You may not say it this way. You may not want to call Bitcoin money. You like there's definitely pushing, and there's trying to control the narrative for sure. We saw a lot of that obviously in 2020, 2021 for what did Joe call it? The flu epidemic or whatever he said in his tweet.
Yeah.
I'll keep it PG.
I couldn't read it.
I'll keep it PG because I know Nico's not thrilled with that. But anyway, to your point, like a lot of times they want to control the narrative. And to your point, like if they're trying to control what Bitcoin is described as, how Bitcoin's used, that is part of control. Yeah, a lot of times people have said in the Bitcoin network that like, oh, someone's going to either co-opt core, or the institutions are going to try and change the narrative. And they're going to try and co-opt and change the narrative. But I do think a part of this is not even changing the nodes or trying to change what Bitcoin is, but trying to police speech and trying to change the definitions of things is another way that you can covert and co-opt Bitcoin that like is more nefarious, because you're trying to control speech. You're trying to control what people say. You're trying to control how people think. And there's obviously, what's the famous saying we do here? You know, memes are the bullets and tweets are the artillery. So
no, tweets are the bullets, memes are the artillery.
I always mix it up, but basically it is an information war. And a lot of people have said like we've been in World War III since basically like 2007, 2008 of like, you know, realizing that we are in an information war. And yeah, it's not done with kinetic warfare like we saw with World War I and World War II, but we saw a lot of it. And especially with the Snowden leaks, with what Julian Assange reported on, with what Gary Webb reported on, with the FBI and the CIA, a lot of these things, I hate to put the conspiracy hat on, but basically we saw that like big tech was working with government to silence speech. We saw this in 2020 with them banning accounts, or, you know, hiding accounts, or not being able to retweet and get information out there. So I do think it is a very much an information war. And I think a big part of that is obviously buying Bitcoin, taking self-custody, stacking sats, staying humble. I think that.
Yeah, and to your point, and I do want to move on, but to your point, we did kind of see you know, a very extreme example of this play out with the Samurai devs. And, you know, like obviously free the Samurai devs. I know there's like a whole new movement right now currently that's been playing out over the weekend of trying to get them pardoned by Trump. But you do kind of see some of this backlash, and obviously that's like the worst case scenario, literally. You know, getting arrested for the things that you're saying, it was just absolutely nuts. Now, of course, they use a lot of pretext to kind of arrest them, but I think we've seen kind of all sides of this in this year in particular, that there is a battle going on right now around the narrative of what Bitcoin is, what it means to the world, what it's going to do. Obviously, we started the show with this idea of captured Bitcoin through Wall Street versus Bitcoin in self-custody. We've seen Bitcoin be attacked because Trump embraced it. We've seen literal Bitcoin developers be arrested for some of their more extreme narratives around their software. And they basically saying, oh, if you know a criminal's using it, then you are also liable for what they do with the software, which is just absolutely insane when you kind of think of the context of this. So we have been seeing a lot about this particular idea this year. There are a lot of forces kind of pressuring you on how and what you can say around Bitcoin, how you should be marketing it to the masses, how you should be marketing it to Wall Street. It's, you know, this year in particular, I think that's probably one of the bigger wars going on right now, is like you said, the information war around Bitcoin and what it is and who controls it and who actually has the power here. I think in every manifestation of a fight this year, that's been kind of the core theme of all of the fights. Anyways, Chris, I saw you did want to pop in one more time.
Yeah, one more thing I want to add. So I really appreciate you bringing up the Free the Samurai dev. So there is a website, billandkeon.org. Keon is spelled Keonne. So billandkeon.org. You can go there. You can sign a petition. You can donate money. So Bill and Keon were obviously the co-founders and developers of Samurai Wallet. It was a privacy-focused tool that used CoinJoin in order to protect forward privacy. Obviously, So they were obviously in a battle for their lives, quite literally. They were facing up to 25 years in prison. There was 2 charges brought against them. One was to conspiracy to commit money laundering. The other one was to operate an unlicensed money transmitter business. They were able, basically the prosecution kind of saw that they were not able to get them on operating a conspiracy to operate a money laundering business because they never took control of funds. It was a tool that could be used. So it's kind of hard to say, hey, you're operating a money laundering thing when it's a tool that they meant a free and open source tool that anyone could use, but they never took control of the coins. That is more of a coin mixer where they're a coin joining tool. The second one, so basically they took a plea deal. So they pled guilty because they saw that it was basically kind of unwinnable in court. So even though later documents were released that FinCEN, the DOJ went to FinCEN and said, hey, we're going to try and charge these guys for running an unlicensed money transmitter business. And basically FinCEN said, well, they never take custody of coins, so they can't be operating as a money transmitter business because they never have custody. And custody is a big piece of that. Obviously, many things were kind of going against them. They were in the Southern District of New York. Basically, they have like a 98% conviction rate. So the odds were not good. There. They don't like Bitcoin there, and they actually have a very, very high conviction rate regardless. Like it's almost kind of like you're guilty until proven innocent in that court.
Well, they also they don't even try a case if they know they can't win, basically. In
pretty much. Pretty much. So a lot of times the best course of action is to try and fight it down and then get a plea that is less bad. So long story short, a big part of it is Keon and Bill are reporting to prison on December 19th. They were, so in between getting sentenced and reporting for prison, December 19th is their date, which is, a short 1.5 weeks away. Unfortunately, they were able to spend Thanksgiving with their families. Luckily, yes, they're obviously under house arrest. So a big part of the website is if you can't donate money, a big part of that would be to sign the petition. I know a lot of people on there are going to say, hey, they're not accepting Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies as donations. A big part of their plea was that, or part of when they got indicted, was that they are not allowed to send or receive or have someone send or receive Bitcoin in their So also hampered their defense. And they just don't want to mess with the prosecution at all. Like, let's just say they started receiving donations now. The prosecution said, well, you broke the terms of your plea agreement. We can now ramp up the obviously the charges brought against you. So there have been talk that unfortunately, if and when they report to prison, barring a pardon from Trump, that they will then accept donations once they report for prison in December 19th. Their wives will coordinate donations. So it is very tragic. Unfortunately, there's only about 3,200 signatures on the petition right now. I'd love for that number to be much, much higher. Obviously, I hope that we could get this in front of Trump, and I think this is a pardon that should go through. Obviously, him and his advisors been saying we're the most pro Bitcoin and cryptocurrency group. A big part of that would be, repealing or pardoning them, in my opinion, saying that they were unfairly attacked by the DOJ. But that remains to be seen. We'll see if that happens. So that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah. Great tangent there, Chris.
One last thing, sorry. Yeah, two more things. Keon was on Pod 256, and also he was on Watchmen Privacy and also the Kim Iverson show. He just talks about way in greater detail about his case, what happened, and I think it's great to hear from the horse's mouth about everything that transpired during the trial, and he can talk on it now. Obviously, I'm praying for him and Bill's families and for them, barring that they report for prison, unfortunately. So that's my last 2 sats. So.
Got it. Great. See, this is why we like Chris on the show, because he makes me look good. Anyways, we'll be right back and we'll jump into the news. Some interesting stuff happening with the banks, guys. It looks like basically almost every bank around the world is now trying to position themselves for Bitcoin, and we got some more updates on that. So we'll be right back.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, Ledin, the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Unlock the liquidity in your Bitcoin without having to sell your Bitcoin. They've issued $9 billion in loans to over 10,000 customers since 2018. I absolutely love these guys. Not only do I have an account with them, but I also have a loan. And what I love about them is that there are no monthly payments, and you could pay back the loan at any time. As soon as you send your Bitcoin as collateral, you'll have cash in your account within 24 hours. Over 1,000 5-star customer reviews, and they've never lost a single dollar or sat of customer money. Go to learn.ledin.io/simply today, and you'll get 0.25% off your first loan. I want to give a shout out to our partner, sat123.com. Sovereignty isn't just about your money, it's about your communications too. When the grid goes down, most people go dark. Cell towers fail in hurricanes, cyber attacks, and blackouts. But satellite phones, they don't rely on local infrastructure. Iridium has 77 satellites in orbit, giving you a direct line anywhere in the US, even offshore. If you hold your own Bitcoin keys, you should hold your own comms too. Sat123.com also has everything you need to start building your Bitcoin citadel. Starlink, battery backups, Faraday bags to protect your hardware wallets, and much, much more. It's a one-stop shop for anyone serious about resilience and off-grid independence. Stay connected, stay independent, stay sovereign. Go to sat123.com/simply today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the store. I want to give a shout out to our partner, BitKey. If you already self-custody your Bitcoin, you know the deal with hardware wallets by now. Complex setups, clumsy interfaces, and a seed phrase that can be lost, stolen, or forgotten. BitKey fixes that. BitKey is a multi-sig hardware wallet built by the team behind Square and Cash App. It packs a cryptographic recovery system and built-in inheritance feature into an intuitive, easy-to-use wallet with no seed phrase to sweat over. It's simple, secure, self-custody without the stress. Time named BitKey one of the best inventions of 2024. Get 20% off at bitkey.world. That's BITKEY.world with the code SIMPLY.
All righty then, guys. We are back. First news coming out of the UAE, of course. Bitcoin MENA conference is going on right now, which is in the Middle East. I think it's in Abu Dhabi, right? So a lot of news is coming out. I'm sure as more of the conference happens, we'll get more news, and I'm sure we'll cover that tomorrow. But the first one is Sharia-compliant crypto investing. Roya and Fused redefine ethical digital wealth creation in the UAE. So Roya and Fused launched UAE's first Sharia-compliant crypto platform, enabling ethical Bitcoin trading via mobile app with Sharia oversights. I don't know what the Sharia oversights is, but as Bitcoiners have been trolling, and I don't think this is a bad thing to say. I think they say it themselves, but Bitcoin is halal money. I know that's kind of been a meme in Bitcoin, but now it's kind of like official. And here we go. So platform avoids speculative trading and adheres to Islamic principles like riba and gharara prohibitions while leveraging blockchain security and transparency. UAE's $30 billion plus tokenized assets and tax-friendly policies position it as a top 5 global crypto hub with $395.9 million market revenue projected by 2025. Strategic alignment of Islamic finance and blockchain innovation creates low-risk entry for ethical investors, doubling digital economy's GDP contributions to 2031. So, of course, you know, big news. Well, one of the big news, it's the first digital-first Islamic bank coming out of the UAE. It's called Roya, and they partnered with Fuse. So here's, I think, where it's kind of interesting. So the platform's design reflects a deep understanding of Islamic principles, such as the prohibition of riba, which is interest, and gharar, which is uncertainty, while leveraging blockchain's inherent security and decentralization as reported. You just love to see it. You know, Bitcoin is for everyone, and it is interesting. I know it's been like a meme in the Bitcoin space that this is the case, but now it's official. They're like, hey, you know, Bitcoin aligns perfectly with our, religion, with Islam. It shouldn't scare you away. There has been a lot of contention on Twitter of whether it is or isn't. Well, now I think they finally made it official. Now I'm just going to bundle these two together because it is also another bank. Apparently, France's second largest bank group, the BPCE, will begin offering Bitcoin and some shitcoin purchases to customers starting today, with a phased rollout across regional banks planned through 2026. So this one, you know, it might be a little more impactful. It's second largest bank in France. And considering some of the rhetoric we've heard come out of France, like in particular, I think it was last week or a few weeks ago, they were talking about like confiscating your property, and now their second largest bank is like, hey, you can use Bitcoin. This one isn't as good, I would say. It is a phase rollout. I looked through the press release, and it doesn't really seem like you can actually withdraw your Bitcoin from the bank. It just says you can buy, sell, and hold Bitcoin within your app, which I think, depending on who you ask, some might say it's a good thing. I know Saylor's been out there essentially saying that, hey, once banks allow you to custody your Bitcoin with them, that's really when mainstream adoption will happen. From our perspective, it's like, yeah, that's cool. But if you're not given the option to actually take your Bitcoin out of these banks, then like, what are we really doing here? The second part is the phase rollout. They're going to do it to about 2 million customers, and then they're going to phase it out to everyone else by like 2027. So it almost does sound like the narratives and rhetoric we've heard from other people, where it's like, hey, we're going to allow Bitcoin for our rich clients. And then, we're just going to do a test bed, and then everyone else will get it later. And you're like, I mean, I guess that's good, but in reality, you got to just launch this for everyone. Though they always say the same thing. This is for customer protection. We gotta test this. We gotta observe it so that we can actually roll this out and not hurt people. So, I mean, I'm not really mad about them not kind of moving fast and breaking things, but it is a larger trend that we've seen in the past few weeks. Of course, in the US, basically every big bank has now officially come out pro Bitcoin. Now we're getting stuff in the Middle East. Of course, we've heard sovereign wealth funds embrace Bitcoin. Now we're even getting in France, and France is not really the best place for your money at the current moment. So obviously, I think that little caveat there of, yeah, you can leave your Bitcoin there in the bank app, probably leads to the greater conversation of what's going on in France, where they're like proposing crazy unrealized gains tax, the ability to confiscate your property. So it's not perfect, but as I've been saying for a while, on the European front, man, they're so cooked right now. I wouldn't want to be in Europe, though. We do need some last Mohicans there. We do need some hardcore Bitcoiners in Europe, because if we leave, no, I'm not saying we, because I'm in America. My ancestors left a long time ago, so you guys need to stay there and make sure that more people are using Bitcoin, and that these banks and all these institutions do bend the knee to the Bitcoin ethos, which is you need to allow your customers to withdraw their Bitcoin. It's not enough to just have like a golden cage, golden handcuffs, where, yeah, you can buy some, get some Bitcoin exposure, but until you can actually use the Bitcoin, take it off these exchanges or banking apps, like, what are we really doing? And we saw this play out in the US. PayPal was famously doing this, and now I'm pretty sure PayPal's like, yeah, you can withdraw it. So maybe it's just a time thing where they are actually trying to test this. Usually my knee-jerk reaction is like, they're just never going to roll it out. So, hey, more banks want Bitcoin, or rather more banks want your Bitcoin, but some of them want to give you access to the Bitcoin. I don't know. Anyways, Chris, it's been a minute. It's been a minute since you've been on the show. I don't know if we've talked about the banks getting into Bitcoin, but it does lead to kind of the initial conversation of the show, that Wall Street wants your Bitcoin. All the biggest bank institutions want to essentially hold Bitcoin for you. So as Nico likes to say, the Overton window has shifted. When does it completely break? Is maybe the better question.
I don't know. I mean, it's very interesting, the bank that's the Sharia compliant Bitcoin. It's very interesting that obviously they don't like interest, or riba as it's called in oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank in the language on Arabic. There we go. Thank you. I was drawing a blank in that. But obviously, so if you're not charging interest, there'll be fees to have your bank account and bank. I know that's something that basically Caitlin Long was trying to do with Custodia Bank, having a fully reserved bank. And obviously, they wouldn't lend out your Bitcoin. They wouldn't be fractionally reserved. They were trying to be fully reserved. But in doing that, the only way that they make money is by charging you fees on having your account, which is fine. I'm fine with that. But I find it very interesting that Gahar, or whatever the other word was, Opti uncertainty, they kept saying blockchain and blockchain innovation. So it's like, we provide Bitcoin and other crypto assets. It's like, all right, well, aren't those uncertain? Aren't they not?
I think they are just at least when it comes to what was it, Roya, I think they are only allowing Bitcoin purchases. So they're not just like
maybe stable coins are the only other asset that I could see being not like uncertainty, because all other cryptocurrencies and even stable coins are kind of like a small caveat that I'd say basically. But it basically seems like, hey, if you're allowing other crypto assets, is like at what point is that uncertainty and not allowed with their charter? So I don't know. I'll just caveat there. I know, Opti, I know, are you big into UFC and stuff? I remember a few years ago, Khabib, right after he retired, Khabib was the guy that went 29-0, beat Conor McGregor, arguably one of the best UFC fighters that's ever.
Bears.
Yeah, wrestles bears. He's in that small little country right outside of Russia that Russia like wrestles bears and like they're crazy fighting. I forget the name of where he's from. You can look it up on Wikipedia. But anyway, I remember he was like, oh, like I don't believe in interest, or like basically he wanted like Sharia law. He's a devout Muslim. And I remember my Saifuddin commented and he's like, hey, dude, I'd love to talk about Bitcoin because Bitcoin is, Sharia compliant. And this was the argument 2 or 3 years ago, at least. I don't know if the conversation ever happened offline. I know he didn't have a podcast with him, but I know there was a big talk of like Bitcoin is Sharia compliant. It is halal. It is all these things that we talk about. Because it is the fairest form of money, and it's converting your energy into a form of currency. So yeah, I think it's very interesting that they're trying to do this. To your point, a lot of banks they love your Bitcoin, and they love helping you with your Bitcoin to get fees on it. So I think we'll always advocate for buying and self-custodying Bitcoin yourself. But I know in this day and age, people always want to be convenient, easier, easier for them. So I don't know. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I mean, the truism in Bitcoin that, yes, not only shitcoiners, but banks and institutions, they all love Bitcoin. They just love your Bitcoin. So make sure that you don't give them your Bitcoin. I guess we could add Wall Street in there. Yes, Wall Street loves Bitcoin now, but they really love your Bitcoin. So make sure you don't give up your keys to Wall Street, the institutions, or shitcoiners at this point.
The great American HODL quote, shitcoiners like Bitcoin too. They just like your Bitcoin. So.
Yes, exactly. That is the best quote ever. All right, guys. Last segment. We have this is just kind of like a, I don't know. It's hodgepodge. I don't even know if that's a real sentiment right now, but we had some kind of funny things happen over the weekend coming out of the Trump administration, based some fights towards the Federal Reserve, some interesting stuff happening with the Bitcoiner. And then Scott Bessent was on the All In podcast and just had like I kind of think it's a hilarious soundbite. So I'm just going to play all this stuff for you. It's the culture. This is kind of what the, I don't know, general sentiment is right now. And then we'll wrap up today's show for Monday. So we'll be right back.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technology. Why HIVE in 2025? Unstoppable growth. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's position to quadruple their global footprint, making them one of the world's fastest growing miners in 2025. And with elite operations that consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, HIVE's now headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable Bitcoin mining. You can catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech or at HIVEDigitalTech.com. I want to give a shout out to our partner, BitcoinBend.io. If you're into freedom, Bitcoin, and building a real community, this is for you. Gain exclusive access to real-world, members-only, private clubs across the globe, featuring poker nights, expert-led classes, co-working spaces, educational meetups, live events, and more. Current locations include Sarasota, Nashville, Boston, Dallas, Las Vegas, and St. Louis, with new clubs launching soon in West Palm Beach, Scottsdale, Alabama, and beyond. Not to mention Bitcoin Bend's resorts in El Salvador. There's 3 of them, and they're absolutely beautiful. You'll also get access to the first fully backed Bitcoin bank with fiat ramps and savings accounts. It's called Private Key Bank. And you guessed it, it's based out of El Salvador. Go peer-to-peer with Bitcoin bulk buys. Tap into home equity for long-term Bitcoin growth. And join their exclusive mining pools if you're interested in mining. What are you waiting for? Head over to BitcoinBend.io, join today, where Bitcoin meets freedom.
All right, guys. So first thing that happened over the weekend, well, I think this might have just been the first thing that I saw that I found kind of interesting. This happened. So apparently Lawrence Lepard sent Trump the big print, his book. And now I don't think Trump actually read the book per se. Maybe one of his aides read it, but he did get an official White House letter from Trump, and it goes, Mr. Lawrence Lepard in Naples, Florida. Dear Mr. Lepard, thank you for your kind words and the wonderful gift. Your unwavering support and encouragement mean a great deal to me and have been a tremendous part of our America First movement. Together, we will continue to usher in the golden age of America. May God bless you and your family. Now, I do think this is probably like political posturing. You know, Trump is very good at knowing what his base wants and kind of pandering to them. So this could be the case. But again, Larry Lepard sent Donald Trump the big print, and he got an official White House letter responding to it, which, you know, it is kind of crazy, though I doubt he's reading the book. He's probably just trying to make sure that he still gets some votes in the midterm. That's kind of like my cynical take on this. This next one is actually kind of interesting. Not necessarily about Bitcoin, but Trump trolling one of Bitcoin's biggest haters, which you kind of just love to see. So Donald Trump on True Social goes, why would Fox and Friends weekend, of all things, put on a stockbroker named Peter Schiff, a Trump-hating loser who has already proven to be wrong? Either the show made a mistake or it's heading in a different direction. He thinks prices are going up when in fact they are coming substantially down. Gasoline hit $1.99 a gallon yesterday in certain states and is down big since Biden. Other prices are almost all down. Biden caused the affordability crisis. I'm fixing it. Along with everything else, much of it, like the border, is already fixed. Check out the booker who put this jerk on.
That's hilarious.
Kind of just hilarious. Like,
so I've heard, not that I know or have an insider, but a lot of people say people close to Trump, he always has like Fox on, obviously. So I'm sure that he has it on in the background. He probably saw Peter Schiff come on and criticize him. He's like, yo, fuck this guy. Throws out this tweet.
I mean, he is right. He is right. Peter Schiff has been wrong about everything, in particular Bitcoin. So, you know, maybe this is Trump trolling him about Bitcoin. I highly doubt it. That's just a bad joke. But yeah. Well, sorry, Chris. What were you gonna say?
No, I also wonder with like him just calling out Peter Schiff is just hilarious. But to play devil's advocate here, Trump did sign with the big beautiful bill. He's printing like $9 trillion over the next 10 years. So it's like, yeah, you say prices are down for now, but after the midterms, I think we'll see inflation tick back up again. But who knows?
Well, I mean, I have been saying it on the show for a while. Like, as much as the official narratives are the economy is better than ever, I think if you're on Main Street, like everyone kind of feels the pain of this like very weird economy right now where, you know, the tariffs are supposedly helping us and sometimes they're on, sometimes they're off, which is what I was saying earlier in the show is like, you need to have certainty in economic planning so that you can actually do better in the economy. And when we have had this much uncertainty, it's really hard to kind of plan, especially from like a business perspective of what you're going to do in the future. So like there is a lot of confusion going on. And, you know, I don't think Trump is doing like everyone kind of a service by like all of this crazy stuff. No one really knows what's going on. And again, to your point, like the midterms are coming up faster than everyone wants to admit. And if the economy is cooked, the Republicans are about to get freaking smoked, even though no one really likes what the Democrats are doing. And they're kind of having their own problems right now. But, you know, the Republicans have always really run on a good economy. And if everyone is feeling poor right now, that is not looking good for them in the midterms. Now, all right, one last thing. This one's coming from Scott Bessent. This one's actually kind of funny. I didn't load it up So hopefully this plays for you guys. But Scott Bessent went on the All In podcast and just had an absolutely kind of hilarious soundbite here. He's aura farming for sure. Scott Bessent aura farming. So let me know if this comes through. And if not, I guess I'll figure out how to get it on for you guys. But here we go.
My worry is that the Fed is turning into universal basic income for PhD economists. Right. That I don't know what they do. They're never right. If you were to
maybe you should double the number of PhDs. If you go to 700, they might get it right.
Well, look. I mean, if you were to look at the central value tendency versus how they've done, it's shocking.
Right.
It's shocking. You know, I said, like, if air traffic controllers did this, no one would get in an airplane. My worry is that the Fed.
Oh man, dude. I don't know. I mean, obviously, you guys know I didn't vote in the last election. But if I did, this is probably what I voted for. This is kind of some good red meat for the base out there. And obviously, Bitcoiners were one of the big kind of driving forces for Trump to get elected this year. But this really just goes into the war between the Trump administration versus Jerome Powell. We've been seeing this all year. I know Kevin Hassett's been on the CNBC recently and saying, like, we're going to get rate cuts. He seems to be leading right now to replace Jay Powell. So, hey, look, I think we might just be seeing red meat for the base right now. On all fronts, you know, as the boys over at the Bitcoin Bugle say, you know, we're seeing a lot of pleb slop right now come out of the Trump administration, but it is kind of stuff where you're like, all right, you know, I kind of like the pandering, but it's also like, can we get something done here? I don't know. Maybe I'm impatient. Maybe I don't know politics enough, but I'm just like, all right, these are good sound bites, but man, what have you done for me lately? All right, enough of me.
I think Scott Bessent, Bitcoin fan, PubKey fan. I just think it's very interesting that he's giving these base takes. I think he's funny. I mean, like I said, I don't follow politics that much. I think he's kind of been my favorite secretary of the cabinet, basically, just because unexpected and just some of the things he's said and done in the position he's in. He's clearly very, very smart, but we'll see.
Yeah, Daddy-O in the chat goes, I'd rather have pump bags. Yeah, me too, bro. That's what I'm saying, man. The sound bites are cool, but I'd rather have some pump bags at this point, man. But yeah, no, to your point, I mean, look, there is a part of Scott Bessent that, you know, could be very concerning, a la the work he did for, you know, George Soros and basically crashing currencies. So I don't think he's necessarily squeaky clean per se, but it is almost like he is a badass, and I'd rather have him on my side than fighting against us. And it does seem like they're fully on board with Bitcoin. Obviously, it's because of the stablecoin angle, but as much as there is uncertainty with what the Trump administration is doing, and it's hard to see if this is actually helping us or hurting us, it does seem like they're trying to change kind of the monetary order. The best, I guess you could say, like, conspiracy theory about this is that Scott Bessent, you know, Treasury Secretary, is essentially trying to wrangle in the Fed. And I know there's this whole myth about the Fed being independent. Well, now it's seemingly becoming the point where, like, they're scrapping that whole idea, and it's like, no, the Fed is not independent. It's not going to be a private entity. Like, we're going to fully corral it. We're putting a noose on it. You know, we're putting a cowboy rope on it, and we are, you know, basically going to force the Fed to do what this administration wants to do. Hard to argue if this is going to be beneficial for everyone, but you don't have to really pay attention to all this. All you got to do is just buy some Bitcoin, take it into cold storage, and let their games play out. This is what it's all about. Look, they're going to play their games, and a lot of it is noise. A lot of it is red meat for the base. So I think being aware of what they're trying to do so that you can better position yourself is obviously a healthy thing to do. But in reality, all you really got to do, guys, is stack Bitcoin, store that Bitcoin, and just continue that process. It's not enough to just buy Bitcoin once. You got to continue to save in Bitcoin, and this is how you will be able to survive whatever crazy stuff happens. So this is where we are. Let's see. Everyone's just trolling. Yeehaw. All right. Anyways, that's our show for today. Nico should be back tomorrow unless something else comes up. But as of now, I think he's coming back. Chris, thank you so much for coming in today. It's always a blast, man. Good to see you on the show. Hopefully I see you in the flesh soon. But until then, man, have a good one.
Have a good one, Opti. Catch you later.
Let's go. All right, guys. Well, you already know the deal. Make sure you eat some good food. Honestly, I was telling you guys, and you guys probably don't care about this, but I am so hungry right now. I'm going to be a fat boy today, so I'm not going to say go eat a steak. I'm going to say just eat whatever makes you happy today because your boy's so hungry right now. But I will say, make sure you get some sun. Even if you're in areas that don't have sun, like everyone else in the chat, I know you guys are saying it's freezing. Maybe get yourself some red lights. You know, we got to make sure we're healthy in here. Anyways, on that note, I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good rest of your day. Peace out.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.